Welcome back to the channel, Married at First Sight fans, and this week we're doing a recap and review of season 11, episode 14, Stranger Spouses. So we'll get to see them go on this retreat with the other couples. They're going to have to get toward deciding whether or not they want to stay together. On decision day, they're playing games. And we get to see both the ups and downs. And then, of course, there's a conversation between Woody and Miles that we're also going to get a chance to talk about. And the whole conversation with Woody and Henry as well. So if you are new here, please feel free to subscribe. We do all types of quality content for romance reality TV. And without further ado, let's get started. So the stay-at-home ban has been lifted, and it's about 14 days before decision day. They've spent almost 3 months in quarantine alone trying to film themselves, and it's been an interesting experience. I mean, it went from 8 weeks to now almost 4 months. So in this next scene, we find that Amani is meeting up with Olivia because Olivia is getting ready to move out. And she's helping Olivia pack her things, supporting her, giving her support, saying, that she's going to be okay. Olivia began to talk about how Brett moved out when she left to visit her parents. And so now she's ready for closure. However, she's been getting random texts from Brett every so many days, and he's talking about how, of course, she hadn't heard anything, and then all of a sudden he texted her asking her to go out on dates from time to time. And, Amani is saying, girl, please, you put a lot into this marriage. Well, the fans disagree. Because Olivia also haven't done her part because, there are some things that she's definitely not telling Amani, but we know. But however, Olivia is talking about how, something about glasses and how he hasn't taken the glasses and, she's hopeful for a better future and that she'll find someone that, loves her like she wants to be loved. And, Amani is giving her that support. Like, yeah, you're going to find that right person. But honestly, I watched her on Unfiltered as well. And Amani's not giving her side. Olivia is not giving her side of the story to everybody. She wants to blame it all on Brett. But Olivia has a lot of responsibility in this too. And that's unfortunate that she doesn't see it because she's going to go into a next relationship, whenever that is, or with whoever that is, with that same mentality. So she walked out, moved everything out, and left her vows that she had on the counter from Brett, and that was it with that scene. So we don't see any more of her. So then let's move on to Christina and Henry's apartment, and Woody comes by and speaks to Henry. And Henry was saying Christina hasn't been around as much, being able to discuss things, and that, Henry told Woody she dropped a bombshell. And, of course, that comes back to that text about Henry receiving from Christina that she thinks he's gay. And, he's saying she is definitely not telling the truth. And Woody was like, she really went there with that comment. Woody was like, okay, that's really crazy for somebody to make those types of assumptions. And the thing is, if this is what Henry wants, then that's what Henry wants. But his choice was to come on the show to be, mated with a female. And the thing is that for her to make that accusation, that's not fair. Especially, she's probably making the accusation because Henry called her out on her, constant not telling the truth first thing that it came up about this homelessness and her not having a place to stay. And she wants to hit him with, as Henry said, this grand slam of him being gay. That's not fair. You know, I mean, Christina, just because a guy doesn't want you doesn't mean his sexual preference is different. Maybe he's just not connecting with you. And then, of course, Woody is like, you guys are planning on going on this couple retreat. How do you think that's going to go over, especially with Christina? And, you know, Henry's like, well, she's definitely going to act like nothing has happened. And, of course, she did. She acted like nothing was said and nothing has happened. And, you know, he said, Woody was like, that would never happen with my wife. Never. I mean, it's not something. If she ever did that to me, I would be done. And, I mean, honestly, you don't I don't care if it's not even a subject like this, any wild accusations because you feel you've been backed in a corner because of something somebody has said is it's not a good thing, you know. And I'm not going to go into the psychology of it all. I'll leave that for another channel. But the thing is, you know, it's just not a good thing to project. I'll just leave it like that. So, you know, Woody's looking at him like, dude, what are you going to do? You know, I mean, you going on this couple retreat, you're trying to stick it out. It doesn't make sense. So then we're over at Karen and Miles. And, you know, Karen and Miles have a lot of issues, especially not issues with themselves, but we're now 4 months past, you know, the original onset of this experiment. So we're now in the month of June. And I don't know if you guys remember, in the month of June, it was civil unrest in the country. And, you know, Karen was saying in this particular scene is that, you know, it's one thing for us to be in this experiment right now, but with everything going on in the world at this time period, I mean, it's been a lot to deal with. You know, and so she was concerned about the pandemic and, you know, the protesting and everything that was going on. So now we actually get to see everybody is packing to get ready to go to their retreat. And it seems to me that Christina and Henry are now in separate rooms. I don't know if you guys noticed that. She was in her room packing. He was in the other second bedroom packing. So it's obvious that they're definitely just getting along to go along with the whole process, you know. So, and they're barely speaking to each other right now. So, I mean, it's a sad situation that these two feel that they got to be stuck together. And I've heard some things behind the scenes in regards to people, you know, possibly if they don't go through with the entire experiment, that lawsuits can unfold. I don't know if that's the case, so don't quote me on that. But it's unfortunate that two unhealthy people staying together just for the sake of, you know, bad things not happening. So, yeah, there is nothing going on with these two. They're just packing, just getting ready to go to a retreat just to do what they say they're going to do. And, you know, in the meantime, it's, you know, granted, they're getting footage, but these two people, hopefully they can come out of this unscathed emotionally. So we get to see everybody's hitting the road, headed to Covington, Louisiana, which is where the retreat is. Especially now, since the whole thing is stay-at-home orders have been lifted in Louisiana. And then we come up on this funny scene where Miles go over to open the door for Karen, and she locks the door. And he's like, you gonna lock the door, really? And I'm hoping that Karen was just joking with him, you know, but it brought them back to the whole scene about the fact where she said she's glad that they sleep in separate rooms. And you know, Miles is talking about how the fact that she's just some intimacy, just give me something. And that is just so unfortunate when you in a relationship where the energy is just not there between, you know, the two people, you know. And they need this getaway. They really do. And because they're definitely struggling with physical intimacy. And then she's stressed on a lot of pressure that she's getting with working at the hospital. And, you know, because she is a healthcare administrator amongst this whole pandemic with C-19. So, you know, they're struggling. I'm hoping that they can, you know, fix this whole situation. And then Bennett and Amelia, you know, they're having their conversation about, you know, splitting the time for Amelia's residency. And he said it's difficult, but he's going to make it work, which is great. I'm glad that he can. But we're going to find some interesting things about this couple later. And then, of course, we see Henry and Christina arrive. Henry wants no drama. He just wants to enjoy the weekend. And, of course, as Henry and Christina is walking through the house, Christina is critiquing everything. And she's worried about this thing and that thing. And this room don't smell a certain way. And that room smell a certain way. And Henry is like, oh, my God. Really? Here we go again. You know, so it's just interesting. I don't know who would be, you know, there's somebody out there for everybody. Obviously, you know, each individual person has to work on themselves. You can't fix other people. Other people can't make you happy. You got to be happy first before a person adds to your happiness. And hopefully they'll figure that out once they make whatever decisions they're going to make on decision day and post decision day. So Amani and Woody now arrive, and they get out the car talking about the bugs and the mosquitoes and how they're not outdoorsy people, and they basically want to enjoy the retreat. They want to kick back, have a good time. They're in a good place with each other. They're a little nervous about decision day, which I don't see why. This is one of the couples that have had the tough conversations. I don't even think Amelia has had, and Bennett has had a couple of tough conversations, but this couple right here, they dig deep. So, you know, even though she says, you know, I don't want to, I'm nervous about decision day. I don't think I'll change my mind unless Woody does something just really egregious. But you know, I just think that they're in a good place. I mean, honestly, you know, they're going to be fine. So all of the couples are sitting at the table. And, well, before they get to the table, let's talk about all this food that they're cooking. I mean, in the meantime, they are having conversation about each other's experiences and whether they're going to stay together. And, you know, of course, Miles is, they're saying he's the best dishwasher, and, you know, Amani is always calling Woody, she's the best husband. And he's like, I'm the only husband. I like the fact that they have their funny banter. But let's talk about all this food that they're cooking. They're putting the alcohol together. Somebody's chopping up it look like parsley. And whoever, I mean, I'm like, could you guys imagine what that kitchen smell like with all the food that's going on? And I don't know exactly what some of the items are. It looks like potatoes and, you know, fish and, you know, just Southern Creole food. Oh my God. I would love to have been a fly on the wall to smell what was going on in that kitchen. But let's go back to the conversation. So they had a sit-down conversation, and they led about the fact of what they thought about Olivia and Brett's situation. And Christina jumps in talking about, you know, I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but from early on, I got vibes that he was an F-boy, and she saw red flags and how she hated that Olivia didn't listen to her. And Woody is sitting over there making faces like, girl, please. You sitting up there talking about your conversation with Olivia and what she, you know, F-boy vibes and everything about Brett. And then she gets emotional about all of this. And, you know, of course, Amani and Woody, their faces are hilarious because they know exactly what's going on with Christina. They're like, Christina, please. You sitting over here talking about what's going on with them and talking about Brett, but what about you? It was hilarious. Guys, comment down below what you thought about that whole thing. And like Amani and Woody's expression, like, girl, please stop. I mean, it was so funny. And then, they continue to have conversation about it all. And Amelia and Bennett jumped in before Miles got started and said, "Oh, I just want to let you guys know that we had sex." And everybody was like, "Oh my God, that is so good to know." And they thought that was funny and exciting. Bennett was also talking about how it was great to take a break, and that they were glad to be away from home. But now we get to hear Miles talk about what it is like in the month of June after everything that happened. And I think that's when the whole situation with George Floyd had taken place, and how being a black man in the world that we currently live in, and the environment, that it's something to have to deal with, and that this is a pressure cooker with the pandemic going on, and the fear that he's saying as a black man he has to deal with. And, of course, Woody's listened to that. And the fact that everybody is actually, listening to what a lot of what's going on has been said. I mean, honestly, from June and that point forward, it has been, as you guys well know, a situation that is unrest in this country. And, of course, Christina acknowledges it, saying, it's a crazy situation. And it is. It very much is, And, the fact that everybody is sitting at that table, and especially Karen. Karen saw Miles in a whole new light as he spoke upon this situation, and saw the level of maturity that he has. And I really think that she saw him as being genuine at that point. Now, whether that changes her whole mentality toward him is yet to be seen, but it definitely made a huge impression on her. And so then we have Christina having conversations about, how she's glad to see how everybody's doing. And in the meantime, while she's, talking about this, you can see Henry's face just like, really? Really, Christina? His faces at that table was priceless as Christina talked. And, Woody says you have to take time to get to know the person that you're with, and how consistently they can be, because you're going to be with this person for the rest of your life, So it was pretty interesting conversation at the table. So now we have Amelia, who is asking Bennett to sing. No, that was later. But they wake up the next morning, I should say, and Bennett heard Amelia singing in her sleep. And he was also trying to learn the words that she was singing. And I thought I said, only Amelia and Bennett. They have their own unique way of connecting with each other. And then to add on to it, Bennett decides that he wants to get up in his gown and show Amelia that he can do the worm. And I'm like, this boy is so funny. And it looks like, to me, I was afraid for him, because he looked like he was hitting his face on the floor, because you can hear the pounding of the floor. And I'm like, dude, don't hurt yourself. But Amelia thought it was so hilarious. I mean, it was funny. So, like I said, these two have fun in their own unique way, and they keep us laughing. So we're back again at round table discussions, and they were talking about Amelia and Bennett and the move that she has to go to Richmond. And of course, Christina is like, man, that's a big move. If it was me, I couldn't do it. And everybody looking at her like, okay, whatever. And they're asking her, because, are you committed to staying to this? And she's like, oh yeah, I'm committed to seeing it through. I'm going to be okay, but I definitely want to be with somebody that I can have potential with. And, and Henry is sitting over there making faces, as usual. And Amani is like, dude, you sitting up here talking about other folks and getting other folks' business, but you don't want to tell about yours and what you about. And I'm glad Amani called him out, because you being over there passive aggressive too, Henry. Come on now. And he says, oh, I'm thinking this is my time to get up from the table. And she's like, no. You gonna sit and talk to us about how you feel about being in this relationship. And again, he gave his answer, yeah, we have our ups and downs, but I'm committed to trying to see and figure out where we're going to go with this. And, I'm like, okay, whatever. And the interesting thing is that the clip that they showed us as a preview of Woody talking about, I'm glad to be married at this time, but this is not the right time. It wasn't even in that context. He was talking about something totally different, unrelated to Amani and Woody. And I'm like, production, please stop. And I know you're trying to anticipate or make it an anticipation for the fans, but no, it didn't work. Again, like you did last week with the DM thing, it didn't work. But let's move on. We have a situation where they're starting to play little games with each other, and we have Karen and Miles doing something out of their comfort zone, and they're playing a game. I think it's called ladder ball, and they claim that they're both athletic, and Miles is very competitive. And he is bombing. It's just not working. He's doing a horrible job playing this ladder ball game with Karen. But Karen is killing it at ladder ball. Maybe that's why he called her killer. That is just so crazy. But we'll see more of that later. But, I mean, she seemed focused. She's tossing that ball, and she's hitting every piece of whatever level it is to score points in ladder ball. And Miles is just like, I can't believe this is not happening for me. She's beating the crap out of me playing this game, and how she beat me playing it? And of course, Karen is eating it all up, because she says that she likes the fact of being able to beat him from time to time. But it's something that she said that was interesting. She said she liked putting him in his place. And it's like, okay, here we go, Karen. I don't know if she meant that to be funny or if she was being condescending to Miles as usual. But she also did mention that she liked doing these little competitions with him, even though he's not happy about losing this ladder ball game. But she likes the fact that, they're able to have these little friendly competitions and have a little fun with him. So we'll see how they go as the episode continues. So we're now moving on to Bennett and Amelia, and this is where we start to see the couples write letters to their younger selves. And Amelia had a cute little sonnet where she was saying, she was telling her 27-year-old self that don't sweat the things about hair dye and the petty stuff. Don't sweat the sweaty stuff, but you will never be able to imagine the wedding that you will ever have in your future now at 27. And he thought that was so cute. However, on the flip side, Bennett says that he would tell his older self that when he was 9, that Pokemon hologram card that you gave away, don't do that, because it will be worth $20,000 now, and that you will regret this. And of course, Amelia is looking like, what? We supposed to be writing regards to each other and our marriage, not writing regards to things we just missed in general. And she was very disappointed by that, because You know, he didn't say anything about nothing with their relationship with writing this letter to his younger self. It wasn't about her, and she thought it was not romantic. And when she brought it up, Bennett was like, okay, but why did I need to bring that up? We're fine now. I didn't even think about that as a child. Now, granted, he has that option, but he was speaking in his truth. I mean, at that moment, he saw what he would tell his 27-year-old self. She looked at him like, dude, really? You were supposed to write related to our relationship. So Bennett is going to do what Bennett wants to do. And, you know, unfortunately, it was a disappointment to Amelia, and she kind of saw it differently. So we also see Christina and Henry also writing letters to their younger selves. And these two are writing in the most passive-aggressive manners. They're writing negatively to their younger selves about each other. Now, granted, there's some truth in that because they don't like each other. He doesn't like her lies and dishonesty. She doesn't like the fact that he is just not open, no communication, and they're just poking holes at each other through their letters that they're writing to their younger self. And then when Henry asked her, was that letter about me? She says, no, it was things that happened in my early 20s that I had to go through. And of course, she becomes emotional about it. And Henry is looking like, oh, because he thought that was about him. And honestly, part of that letter is about him. But she's, you know, acknowledging the fact that she went through some crazy things in her 20s and that she needs to be, you know, aware of that, you know. And he started talking about how if he had took guitar lessons, that he would have written 2 great albums. Now in 2020, it's like, why are these two still here? You know, a lot of people disregarded Brett's response to not sticking this out. Brett was being true to himself. He's like, you know what? I'm not going to even, you know, fake the funk with you. I'm moving on. These two, why are you still here? So then there is a conversation with Monty and Woody. And Amani brought up the conversation about, you know, decision day. And, you know, they were asking each other, what would it take to say no at decision day? And, you know, Amani looking like, what? What do you mean? Because she was shocked by that, you know, that conversation. And, you know, she was saying pretty much it'll probably take a lot. You know, they've had the deep conversations, as I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. I mean, they talked about everything from disciplining their children, making decisions outside of your partner, the conversation about babies, and, you know, the fact that they're able to have this, because by the way, they're doing all this conversation while playing dominoes. So they're, you know, Woody is very competitive as well. But, you know, she doesn't sweat the small things. And she likes the fact that Woody is able to talk about, like I mentioned before, you know, his going to counseling, getting help for his anger issues, you know, talking about dogs and where they're going to live and buying houses and finances and things. And that's the stuff that Amelia and Bennett haven't talked about. I will mention that. I mean, they've had little creative things that they talk about, but Woody and Amani talk about the deep stuff, you know. And what was interesting is that Amani wins. He says, I let you win. And she was like, oh, no. You didn't let me win. And they laughed about it. But it was interesting that Woody said that, you know, if this was the old me, I would have been like, you know, especially with everything we see with the other couples going on, and I was in that situation, it would have been a wrap. Nope, up, I'm done. That's it. I'll be gone. And I'll just tell you to shut up. And Amani is looking like, what? But it also shows growth, that he can see his old self and where he has come from. And he also acknowledges the fact of what he sees in the other couples, and he appreciates the fact of where they are at this point. So, and she doesn't sweat the small stuff, because she could really have taken offense to that, but she saw the bigger picture. So now we see girls talk and guys talk. The girls talk was with Christina, Amelia, and Amani. And they were talking about the sacrifices that they are needed to maintaining a happy marriage. Amelia says that she made compromises with Bennett, and it was a huge sacrifice for Bennett to be able to, split the time to go from Richmond to New Orleans. And then, here we go with Christina. She was like, I couldn't do it, but, I just think that it's great that he is doing something like that. And she's talking about Henry, and he talks about her not being honest, and she says that she sees a lot of dishonesty in him, but I can work it out, and I think that we have hopes. And Amani is making faces like, girl, stop. Please stop. You saying one thing, but we all know the truth with what's going on in you and Henry's relationship. And honestly, even Amelia, you can tell by her facial responses, it's the same thing. Amelia's giving Christina the side eye like, girl, stop. But she's not as facially expressive as Amani and even Woody may be. But Christina even called herself that she does lies from time to time because she feels that she was backed in a corner, so she had to attack by lying, whatever. So then there is guy talk time with Henry, Bennett, and Miles. And so they have their conversation as well. And, Henry is talking in circles too. Henry is like, I'm really not wrong. Her issue is her dishonesty. And, we've been trying to, get past this. And, I think maybe we have an opportunity, and we'll see how it's just, I didn't even make sense of it. That's probably the reason why I don't sound sense talking about it, because it didn't make sense coming from him. So, of course, if it doesn't make sense to me, it also didn't make sense to Bennett either, because he was looking at him like, what? Really, Henry? I don't get it. I don't understand what you're talking about. And it's purely because those two should be gone. They shouldn't be together. And they're trying to make sense of a relationship that just don't make sense, at this point. And Bennett came on when he did his little commentary and said, what are you talking about? I don't know. I don't understand, And so, of course, Miles gets to talking about his situation with Karen and how he know exactly why the experts matched them, because they have all these differences. She's very organized and in detail, and he wanted a person like her and could, see himself possibly being with her for the rest of his life, but at the same time, it's been difficult. Miles is holding out, and he's been holding out for 4 months for this. So hopefully Karen, gets it together and decides before decision day what they want to do. So we now see Amelia and Bennett actually playing basketball. Amelia says that she hasn't played since she was 12. And she cried because she got kicked off the basketball team because she was not good at all. And she was trying to show him how to prepare to play in basketball by doing all these different stretches and everything. And it was so funny. I have a basketball household. We watch basketball. And Amelia, yeah, I understand, where you're coming from why, everything happened back then. But it was cute. So, they continue to, to throw, put up shots. And honestly, Amelia did pretty good. Bennett, on the other hand, yeah, I think we need to put you on the bench, bro. But Amelia actually made several of her shots. And then they had conversation about moving to Richmond for her residency. And it was interesting because she said, "You're gonna miss me. I'm gonna be gone a lot." And his conversation, you know what? I'm gonna enjoy having some time away from you. What did he say that for? Because Amelia was disappointed by that. She was like, "Oh wow." And honestly, Amelia, you have to have a healthy balance. You gotta have some me time and you gotta have some together time. That guy can't be joined at the hip with you. He's not saying that, you know, he needs to be away from you because he just can't stand you. He's saying that it's going to have some balance and he's going to be able to enjoy time with you and away. So it's okay. So then there's conversation between Woody and Miles, and Miles is discussing his 4-month-long time without any physical intimacy, that being sex. Okay, and in the meantime, he was saying with everything that he has been doing to burn off energy, he's been going for runs, he's been working out, he's been doing with lifting weights. He said he has lost 20 pounds trying to keep himself where he's supposed to be as a good husband. Miles, I applaud you for that, because a lot of guys would have left a long time ago. He's sticking in. Now, the only thing that I don't like is the fact that, okay, listen, let me make sure I say this in the right context. Love is a commitment. You can tell that he loves this person because he's committed to seeing this thing through with her. However, on the flip side of this, Karen has to give the same type of love. Now, if she's not truly interested in Miles, that needs to be said. You can't say, "Oh yeah, I find him attractive, I want to do this," but then at the same time, you're not showing him any interest. They got to figure that out. So we'll see. All right, so now we move on to this part where it's called Stranger Spouse Game, where they're asking questions and each couple is going to play the host and pose questions. And if both couples have it right, they get points. We see something very interesting in this game. And with Henry and Christina and Karen and Miles, which are the couples that are not doing well in this experiment, they're doing extraordinary better in this game than the couples like Bennett and Amelia and Woody and Amani, which is interesting because, like I said, Woody and Amani have had the deep conversations, but I mean, they got some of their answers the same, but not a lot. And Woody and Amani was one of those couples, including Bennett and Amelia, who thought that they were going to win this because they're so compatible, when actually they came at the bottom two of this whole competition, and Miles and Karen and Henry and Christina came out on top, which was pretty interesting. And I mean, guys, let me know what you think in the comments about how this all went. Now, granted, they did get a few of their answers correct, but a lot of these answers were interesting. I mean, you would think that the worst couples would do the worst, and then you would think that the couples that are doing better in the experiment would be doing better. And it just didn't go like that, you know. But there was, I will say that this game was a lot of fun for all of them because they needed to break the ice. I mean, when you've been in what was a pandemic, or it still is a pandemic, and at the same time, everything that's going on with civil unrest, nerves on edge, this little retreat, it was able to give some of the couples an outlet to enjoy themselves. It was able for couples to have deeper conversations, reconnect with the other couples, friendships reconnected, like with Woody and with Miles. And then they had fun with this particular Stranger Spouse game. So Decision Day is it's 2 more episodes left in this season. It's the one next week where they meeting again with the families. And then we have our last episode, which is the Decision Day. You know, I will say I give it props to all of these couples who, out of all of the seasons, the 11 seasons that Married at First Sight has had, this season they had to deal with the most. Now, last season was out of control. I mean, we know what happened in season 10 with all of those couples. Only 1 out of the 5 made it. But could you imagine if season 10 had to go through with what was going on in season 11 with this pandemic and everything that's going on with civil unrest in the country? There is no way. And I mean, with Jessica and Austin and her being a nurse too, because I think they were on couples camp, she was going through it as well with everything. So we'll see. So we do get to the conversation with Woody and Amani at bedtime. And, you know, they were asking, having conversations about, you know, some of the things that she finds that it was selfish of him, which was not dividing the laundry. But this also still goes back on her conversation. She says about the fact that she doesn't sweat the small things. She sees the bigger things in their relationship. And the bigger things, and even some of the small things, outweigh some of the things that could annoy her. And she don't sweat it, you know. So I'm loving the fact that where Amani and Woody is going to go. They need their own side TV show or a YouTube channel. And then we end this episode with Bennett and Amelia having conversation, and Bennett sings Amelia to sleep. And hey, whatever works, whatever builds your connection. I'm not going to even, because a lot of people might be, oh my God, he can't sing. It doesn't matter. Amelia loves it. And he sung her to sleep with his little song about the bees and the birds and the bees with one wing, and it was so funny, but it was also so cute and affectionate. And you know what? It put her to sleep. And they got a play snake in the bed. I don't know what that is. Let me know if you all know what that possibly is. And then let's not forget Bennett and his eating with a whisk. I forgot to mention that. So let's do our post notification shout outs. We do this at the end of the video. So if you want a shout out, comment down below and I will shout you out. First shout out goes to Robert McClellan. Thank you so much for engaging in the channel. And then Maxine Moore. Thank you so much as well for engaging in the channel. So please, if you enjoyed this video, like this video, share, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next week.